Welcome back to the world of engineering, everybody. Whether you're in print tech, intro to engineering, engineering design, or electronics and robotics, we are going to keep an engineering notebook. Engineering notebook is used, of course, by engineers, but by students of engineering, by anybody that's working on a project. It becomes a legal document. And we're going to talk more about the importance of the engineering notebook. But first, let's talk about what an engineering notebook is. Basically, it's a book where you're going to formally document in chronological order all of your work associated with a specific design project. We are going to keep project ideas, research, interviews, sketches, calculations, experiments, observations, conclusions, and anything else that might specifically relate to a specific design project. This picture is an example of one of my students from the past, their first couple of pages, page 2 and 3 of their notebook. And this is similar to what you're going to be doing in this class. There's other names that a engineering notebook goes by. Sometimes it's called of course, engineering notebook, but an engineering logbook, might be an engineering journal, might be an investor's notebook or an inventor's notebook, but it's not the same thing as a portfolio. Portfolios are different, and we'll keep an electronic portfolio on your computer, so you'll have both your engineering notebook that documents everything on paper, signed and witnessed, and then you'll have the portfolio, your electronic portfolio, which you can take on job interviews and such stuff like that. So let's take a more look into what the engineering notebook is. We record written ideas, sketches, preferably annotated, and when I say annotated, I mean there's little notes or arrows pointing to certain things, talking about materials or maybe dimensions, how big something needs to be. We annotate sketches. We put instructions on sketches. So we're going to have, of course, written ideas and sketches, work session summaries. If you're working in a group, you might have a summary of what you're actually doing, or what you have actually accomplished or even failed at during your group session. Any research findings, if you do research, you'll document what was found, where you found it, which is very important, and any conclusions that you come to. Also, if you do interviews, you want to document who you talked to, contact information, what was discussed, and most importantly, what you learned from that interview. We also might include CAD printouts, test results. You might stick in a photograph or a picture of some sort. You're going to put any calculations that you do. It doesn't matter if your line of investigation leads to oblivion, or leads nowhere. You want to document your failures so that you provide clues in order to maintain success. So document everything. Doesn't matter where it leads. The more you fail, the more you learn. Engineering research and development organizations usually require their engineers to keep a running record of their activities. An engineer's notebook is recognized as a legal document, and it is used in patent activities to prove the origin of an idea and how it led to a solution, prove diligence in turning that idea into a solution, and prove when the idea became a working solution, how you reduced it to practice. So very important steps in the patent process, but also into arriving at a certain solution. Organizations must deal with the fact that priorities change, people come and go, and engineer provides a certain continuity, especially when a project might be put on hold for a while. Somebody might resign, move to another project, or maybe somebody just keels over at their desk. You never know what's going to go on, so you want to have that working document and keep that continuity present. Many collegiate engineering programs require their students to keep an engineering notebook. It helps you to develop better time management skills. Of course, it will improve your documentation. It will improve your sketching, research, and your communication skills. It'll also produce a thorough and complete summary for any presentation and report that you might want to do. Most engineering notebooks have a quad rule already kind of pre-printed, faded out in the background. If you buy the hardbound copies, that's what you'll see. And I'll try to get an example of a hardbound engineering notebook that I used in school, and you can see what they actually like. But this is a page sample of what ones. So they have the quad rule there. Pages are individually labeled in that they are numbered. Each page will be numbered on the outside corner. So if it's the left side of the book, it'll be on the upper left corner. If it's on the right side, it'll be on the upper right corner. There's a place for the designer's signature and date. There's a place for a witness to sign and date. So you will sign it as your original work, and your partner or your neighbor or somebody that watches you enter that information will sign it as a witness. It can be your partner in your lab. It can be me. It can be anybody pretty much that is around when you're working on the project. And it also has locations for identifying content continued from another page in the book. You might start a project in September and then put it off for a little while and come back to it in January, and you can refer back to page 6 when you're really working on page 60. So it'll tell you where to go back and find previous information. And of course, there's always a statement of who owns this book. Is it your book? It might be on each page. It might be on the front of the book. It might be on the binding, but there is going to be some sort of ownership factor. Who owns this book? Who is responsible for this work? There's certain standards that we need to abide by. The first one is that pages are sequentially numbered in ink at the top outside edge. Like I said before, if you have a book and you open it up, on the left side there's a page, on the right side there's a page. We would number our pages on the upper left corner of the left side and the upper right corner of the right side. Notebooks are bound. They are bound so that you can't add pages, so that you can't remove pages without disrupting the binding. And they're that way so that somebody can't come in and fake your work, or you show a true path of how you got to your conclusion without any false pretenses. And no pages are ever removed from the engineer's notebook for any reason. So if you make a mistake or you goof up a drawing, X it out, cross it out, whatever you want to do, move on to the next available space and recreate it, or leave it as is. But we don't remove pages for any reason. Next, notebooks should be stored in a safe location when not being used. A lot of firms will actually lock up their engineers' notebooks in safes. Certainly, they should be fire protected. They are paper after all. It's stuff where we do handwritten. They might include photographs that are important, or CAD drawings, or things that maybe we can't even recover electronically. So we're going to keep them in a safe place. When the notebook is full, we just start another one. So you might have volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. You might have 10 volumes for one project. You might use one notebooks for 6 different projects. It just depends on your how much you're putting into the notebook. And most importantly, all of our figures and calculations should be clearly labeled. We need to know what the variables are, what your A stands for, what your X and Y stands for. Label your pictures, label your drawings, label your formulas. What is this formula used for? That type of thing. So very important that we very clearly label figures and calculations. When we are working in the notebook, we start at the top, work left to right, and top to bottom, just like you're reading a book. The same thing will go on when you're entering stuff in the notebook. We don't use anything that can bleed through pages. Markers, especially permanent markers, will tend to bleed through because we were usually writing on the back side of each page. We don't want the front side to bleed through onto the back and become muddy or illegible on the reverse side of the page. So if you need to do anything in color, you should probably use a colored pencil, and I will have colored pencils available in class. Anything that you insert into the notebook should be done so with tape or glue. I prefer glue sticks. You can use Elmer's glue, whatever you have. Tape if you need to. Staples kind of get hard to deal with, but and they're not really that as permanent as glue. So I would prefer you use some sort of glue stick or glue when you're attaching anything into your notebook. The date must be entered on with each entry. So when you start writing in your notebook, each day or certainly each page, you're going to indicate the date in the left-hand margin. So you'd have the date in the left side, and then your writing. Mistakes are crossed out and initialed, just like you would on a check. So you cross it out and place the correction nearby. Never, ever erase or remove anything out of your notebook. Consistent recording methods and ideas for your ideas and references and test results and such need to be used throughout the book. So whatever you start to do, whether it's a line through it, a scribble through it, an X through it, whatever, keep it consistent. If you use a color to do your markouts, use that same color through the rest of the notebook. Each page is signed and dated before the next page is done. So at the bottom of each page, you're going to have a place for a signature, and you're going to sign it, and you're going to date it, the date that you finish that page. When you get to the bottom, you'll sign it and date it, and then you'll get a witness, myself or one of your partners or something like that, that's going to sign as the witness and date it in a similar location. So that should be done on every single page. You might sign 2 or 3 pages in one class, but you need to sign that it is your work, and that it's been witnessed by your mentor or colleague. Lastly, we want to make sure we're neat, we're accurate, everything is legible, and thorough. That is the important thing. Be detailed. Here in the bottom right corner is a picture of Jack Kilby. He was the inventor of the integrated circuit, and he's showing you his actual engineering notebook that he used in the process of inventing that integrated notebook. Write everything as if you were speaking to a future engineer who is responsible for carrying on your work. You want it. You want all your directions to be clearly, all your thoughts and processes to be clearly established, so that anybody can pick it up and move on with your work. The most important thing is it is a legal document, and if you were to ever take an idea, and believe me, it's been done, where you take an idea that you've done in class and you want to go submit a patent for it, this notebook will become that legal document that they will require for proof of work or proof of originality and whatnot. So it is a legal document, and it will be used as such if and when you should take it to patent, or for other reasons. It might be a proprietary need for your company or for yourself. You might get 10 years down the road and say, hey, I came up with that idea first in 2017, and here's my proof. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have, and all engineers keep them. Certainly all students of engineering keep them. Most companies will require you to keep them in the engineering field, and there's a lot of other companies and other professions that will keep a similar type of document. That concludes this PowerPoint on the engineering notebook. Please go to your Google Classroom for your assignment on this. I'm going to give you a notebook today, and you're going to actually get it set up and ready to go for our first project.